Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're still out by the Thunder Bay River. I'm joined now with Tuffy Cross, a retired boat captain of the Chinook. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about your history on this boat? You've worked on it for over 30 years, right?
Yeah, I started in 1971, in May of 1971. The state was looking for people to operate the boat and make nets, and I was the net maker in the commercial fishery at one time. I was a commercial fisherman from 1954 until '69 when we were put out of business. So the state knew I was a commercial fisherman, and they came after me to see if I wanted a job on the boat making nets and taking care of their gear. So in 1971 I joined them. I was going to be here for about 3 years and move on, but it lasted 31 and a half years.
A little longer than expected.
Longer than expected. It was a good job. Lots of opportunities to enjoy yourself on the lake and do things that was important to the state.
So what was your main goal and your duties on this boat?
My main duties was I first mate on the boat. My cousin Bill Cross was the captain at the time.
Wow.
And so him and I sailed together on the boat for about 26 years. And he was the captain. I was responsible for all the gear on the boat and making the nets and making sure we had the right gear for the operations that we were doing up and down the lake. We made about 5 or 6 different trips up and down the lake, either gill netting or trawling or working down in Saginaw Bay on walleyes. And also in the spring we used to plant all the lake trout. We could haul one tank. We had a big tank that went on the boat here, and we could load one tank at a time and take them out to plant the lake trout. So we usually made about 3 trips a day with different, trucks coming in every 2 hours or 3 hours, so we could run back and forth out to the planting grounds. Also, this boat was rigged for a West Coast trawler, and that was, we had 40-foot outriggers on the boat that went over the sides, leaned out, and that was the state's way of getting people back to Lake Huron to fish salmon. Everybody was going over to Lake Michigan, but they were planted about 5 years ahead of us, and everybody was catching fish over there. So they rigged this boat up, and we could tow up to 96 lures at a time.
Wow.
So then the fishermen would follow us out, and we would tell them where the thermocline was, because we had a thermobaphograph that recorded the temperature of the water. And when we leave the port, especially Oscoda, we would have 10 or 12 little boats following us out, and as soon as we started catching fish, we would radio them and tell them what lures we were using. And it was quite an interesting job, but it was kind of boring. long hours of towing lures, yeah. So, and then after that, then we went into trawling, and so we would trawl the bottoms looking for little fish, and that took quite a bit of time finding bottoms that you could tow on, because you had to tow this net along the bottom, and you couldn't tow them over rocks, because if you hung up on rocks, it would tear the trawl. So it took us a while to find the grounds that we could tow the trawl in.
So would you spend days at a time on the boat, or?
Well, this boat would go out in the morning, come back in the evening. It was just a day boat.
Okay.
So, but when we were away from home, we would stay in motels and eat in restaurants. We never lived on a boat, and that was a good thing.
Right.
It'd be nice to get away from her for a few hours.
Yeah, you need some space,
Yeah.
So what did you think when you first found out that she would be retiring and replaced with the RV Tanner? What were some of your thoughts?
Well, she needed to be replaced. We were trying to replace her for a few years. She was built in '47. Getting ripe in some spots, metal wearing through, and they had to replace part of the bottom here a few years back. So it was time to replace her, and so it was a good deal for the state of Michigan.
Absolutely, and it was a beautiful commissioning. I mean, were you able to see the christening and things like that when she was christened, the RV Tanner?
No, I haven't seen anything she has done yet.
Oh, do you think you'll get a chance? I
Oh,
mean,
oh yeah, I usually go out 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, even
But-
though you're retired, you gotta stay on the boats.
Yeah, I love her, and I love this kind of work. So.
Awesome. So do you want to tell me a little bit about the work that you're now doing with the Besser Museum? It sounds like the Chinook's a little bit involved, but also another boat?
I'm running the committee at working on the Catherine V. And the Catherine V was an old fish tug built in 1928. And it was a wooden tug covered with a layer of steel. And when we went and looked at her, Chris got me interested in her because she knew I was a commercial fisherman, and she wanted to know if the Catherine V could be saved. So I went down and looked at her, and I said, well, let me get a couple of guys. And one of the guys I got picked up with Dick Silver, and him and I started on the boat. Excuse me. And we went down, looked at it, and said, yeah, I think we can, repair her. So we started working on her. Then I got Phil Jordan and his wife to come down and look at it, and they decided if we cut the rails off, they could replace them. So I went and talked to Chris, and first I asked Phil how much he figured the rails would cost to put new rails on. He said, well, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. So I went and talked to Chris, and I said, Chris, how much money do we have? And she said $513 or $535. So then we had to have a fundraiser. So we have had 3 fundraisers, and each time we raised about $6,000. And that gave us enough money to redo the boat pretty much and put in new docks. And so now, hopefully next year, she'll be an exhibit for the museum. And with the Chinook coming over there, we can tell both parts of the story, the fishery part and also the research.
That's really great. And I think my last question would be, I know she took her last voyage the other day, and you were aboard, so how was that?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. She's a good little boat. She always brought you home, never had to worry about, having her stall out there. She had a good engine in her and good crew on her.
Awesome. Well, I'm very glad to hear it, and thank you so much for sharing your part of the story with us.
Pleasure of mine.
And be sure to stay tuned, because we'll be right back with more.